Now, where does Season 2 of Andor go is the million-dollar question. Originally, Tony Gilroy and crew had Andor mapped out to 5 seasons, with each of these seasons covering a year before the events of Rogue One. However, things were kind of condensed from 5 seasons down to 2, with Season 1 roughly taking place in the year of BBY5, or 5 years before the Battle of Yavin. That means that Season 2 has about 4 years of the Star Wars timeline it can cover. Gilroy continued in an interview stating that Season 1 was developed in blocks of 3 episodes, and that Season 2 would follow the same 3-block structure, with each block covering a different year. Time jumps, folks, where we're going. Wait, that's the wrong franchise. Hyperspeed. We're going hyperspace to the future. This can allow for us to see characters taking on major events in a couple of days or maybe even weeks, and then jumping a whole year as we see them as a completely different character. Like they have seen some shit. The next 4 years aren't necessarily about the rebellion, they're about learning to be a leader and how difficult it is to put an alliance together and what happens to these people who are the original gangsters versus the establishment and a lot of different issues. Gilroy continues stating that roughly 30-some characters are being carried forward to Season 2, and the second half of the series is about what does time do to these people. People grow and people get tired, people betray one another, people change their minds, people get weak, and people go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So all of this combined with the time jumps could see someone desperately on board with the rebel cause in episode, 3? Only to see them siding with the Empire a year later in episode 4. As for who or what is going to show up are only theories, but no doubt fan favorite K2SO, motion captured and voiced by Alan Tudyk, will be introduced as the lovable reprogrammed Imperial security droid we know from Rogue One. He could show up after one of the time jump sections or even get an actual meeting and reprogramming of him by Cassian and the twins of Rizmor and Curtis on Wikuku. Who's naming these planets? Like we mentioned earlier, Luthen plays a big role in the rebellion's beginnings, but his absence in any of the films almost guarantees he's gonna die. The amount of time, energy, money, life he has given to the cause ties back to the emotional speech in Episode 10, and his sacrifice honestly might be for Mothma, covering for her, knowing all too well that she has more leadership qualities than he. A key moment for Mothma will be the public challenge of the Emperor and the Empire over the Gorman massacre. Back in Episode 6, Mothma mentions the peaceful protest of Gorman having a knee on their neck over basic rights. However, her efforts failed, resulting in the massacre which saw Imperial troopers killing hundreds of peaceful protesters. I believe this happens in BBY2, so it's gotta be included because this is what drives Mothma on the path of becoming a public figure standing against the Empire, later resigning from the Senate, and becoming the prominent member of the rebellion we know, working with several characters featured in Rebels. Leaving her family behind because Davos Skaldrin and her husband have definitely tainted her daughter. Speaking of Rebels, yeah, almost all of these characters are fair game to make their live action appearance. You get a cameo and you get a cameo. Everyone gets a cameo. Nah, it won't be a cameo fest of an MCU movie, but rather the key members that are operating in the rebellion kind of makes sense for them to show up. Hera, who ends up becoming a high-ranking member in the rebellion, seems like a safe bet, along with some of her maybe associates. I'm banking on Sabine, but honestly, it could be the whole crew. As for the Imperial side of things, Brawny Thrawny is no doubt going to make an appearance. This time in the Star Wars timeline begs him to be a destructive force for the Empire and tasked with tracking down rebel activity, which he is obviously very, very good at. Not only would it be a great way to introduce this blue man to a wider audience, but even could be the person that Surreal ends up reporting to. Surreal and Miro seem to be going on the path of Imperial power couple, performing the old trench run in the bedroom, but the thirst for power is going to drive Surreal up the ranks. While I'm theorizing the opposite is going to see Miro distancing herself from the Empire. The traumatic fieldwork on Ferric shows her firsthand what the Empire is capable of, and this rattles her loose from the Empire's hold. Now, some final thoughts on Season 2 includes either a name drop or maybe an appearance by Krennic, who becomes the head of the Death Star project, and Galen Erso at least passing along the Death Star information to Bodhi Rook. With Gilroy getting into the grittiness of everything, this could even make for one of the 3-episode kind of block arcs. And lastly, Jimmy Smits, Bail Organa, baby, he's gonna be back, don't you worry, along with Tarkin being the thorn in Krennic's side that we kind of see in Rogue One. Oh yeah, and Yavin 4 will no doubt be the base of operations in the later half of the season. This plays a large role and would be foolish not to include in some capacity. Like I said earlier, the final moments will no doubt lead directly to the opening of Rogue One, much like Rogue One did to A New Hope. I'm hoping Season 2 will be the same caliber as Season 1. Part of me did really want 5 seasons of this, each tackling one single year. I mean, give me the nitty-gritty of the rebellion as it's building down to every single minute detail. But hey, I'm not going to complain about anything in Andor because it was fantastic. But what do you think? What Star Wars characters do you hope might show up in Season 2? And why is it an old, grizzled Cal Kestis? But obviously, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Episode 12 of Andor, that post-credit scene, and do you think that this is the best thing that Disney has done with the Star Wars property?